Good place to begin my story is when I was about 40 years old and living in Warren, Ohio. I was attending church, and one day the church leaders asked me if I would buy the church building and put it in my name. I said yes, I could do that. They assured me they would make all the payments and that I would never have to worry about the money. As time went by, I needed a bigger house, and I said to my wife, I'm going to put our house up for sale, and we're going to buy a house in the country. Looking back on it now, I realized that decision was not financially sound. One day Mai was reading the newspaper and said, there's a brand new 3-bedroom house for sale with Pella windows, 8 acres of land, a running creek, and good hunting. My reply was, that has to be a mistake in the newspaper. The next day the advertisement was still there, and I said to my wife, I'm working afternoon shift today. Tomorrow morning we're going to go look at that house. As I walked through the front door, I was amazed by what I saw. The house had beautiful hardwood floors, Pella windows, 30-inch veneered doors throughout, a full basement, and I immediately felt at home. As I walked around the house, I began knocking on the walls. The lady selling the house asked, what are you doing? I replied, I'm checking to see if the walls are well insulated. She said, this house was built for me by a personal friend who was a contractor before he left the country. He used the very best of everything. It has heavy gauge wiring throughout, half-inch drywall throughout, excellent insulation, a full basement, and an extra deep, oversized garage. I called the bank and asked to speak with the loan officer in charge of home loans. The man answered the phone and said, yes, how can I help you? I explained the situation and he said, I remember you. You're the one who bought the church. I replied, yes, sir. Now I'd like to buy this house. He explained that the interest rates were very high and that I was only the 4th person the bank had financed under those conditions. He had my credit information in front of him and asked me to describe the house. After I described it, he asked, are you sure you really want that house with interest rates this high? I answered, I certainly do. Then he asked, would you like a 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? I laughed and said, how about 50 or 80 years? I just want to live here. I don't care if it's ever completely paid off. Whatever you can arrange is fine with me. I just want to buy this house now. This is where I raised my 2 children and won from this little house to a mansion in Johnson, Ohio, Sodom Hutchins Road. About 2 miles south of Route 88. He said, I signed your name to the deed. You own the house. I turned to the lady and said, give me a nice big hug. I just bought your house. She gave me a hug and I said, by this time tomorrow, you'll find the money in your bank account. If there's anything you want to leave behind, my wife and I don't have much, and we could probably use the furniture or whatever you don't want. She moved out over the next 6 days, and we rented a moving van and moved our belongings into our new home. That was all the money we had. I didn't have to put any money down on the house. There were no closing costs, no down payment, nothing. After walking through the house, we found ourselves sitting on the front porch. I was holding my jacket in my hand with it hanging over the edge of the concrete porch. A German shepherd walked up, gently took my coat out of my hand, carried it across the yard, circled around a couple of times, and laid down on my coat. I looked at my wife and said, we now own a really great-looking German shepherd that comes with the house. The Lord was taking care of us in wonderful ways. Later, workers came to dig the ditch along the front of the property. I asked them, please set the stones aside so I can install culvert pipes and use the stones to make the entrance look nice. Later I bought 30 feet of culvert pipe, and they installed it for me, giving us an extra-wide driveway entrance. Then one of the workers said, we have a lot of extra dirt we don't know what to do with. Can we dump it in your front yard so you can spread it around? I said, yes, bring me all you want. It will raise the yard nearly 2 feet. That saved us a great deal of money. My first project was putting up a large television antenna. I mounted it on a heavy hinge at the base, anchored it to the roof, tied a rope to my car, and used the car to raise and lower it. It was a huge antenna. The circular U-shaped section was over 7.5 feet across, bigger than I was. My next project was installing an 8-foot sliding glass door so we could look out over the backyard while eating breakfast. The view was through the utility room, and it was wonderful having the washer and dryer on the first floor. At that time, the back porch was nothing more than 2 sawhorses with a sheet of plywood across the top, but it worked just fine. From the back of the house, it was a long walk to the tree line. Beyond the trees, the land dropped about 30 feet at a steep angle down to the winding creek that flowed through the back of my property before continuing onto the neighboring land. I enjoyed walking back there. In one corner grew skunk cabbage, and every now and then I would smack one of the leaves just so I could smell it. When I was a little boy, skunk cabbage grew in front of my grandmother's house, and I always enjoyed its unique smell. It reminded me of the swamp where I had almost died in quicksand as a child. One day at work, a group of us were talking, and one man said he had just paid several $100s to refinance his house because interest rates had come down so much. His monthly payment had been reduced considerably, and he thought it was a wonderful deal. So I called the bank and spoke with the same gentleman through whom I had bought my house. I asked, how much do I have to pay to get my house payment reduced? He replied, nothing. I have already reduced your payment by several $100s a month. I thanked him and said, I really appreciate that. Now we had money in the bank. I bought 2 white-faced beef cattle from a neighbor down the road, and he agreed to supply the grain and the straw. I bought an Alice Chalmers tricycle front-end tractor with a 2-way hill plow, along with a 7-foot disc. I also bought a large chest freezer for the garage so we could store everything we needed. If we wanted a handful of green peppers, onions, or anything else, it was right there just outside the kitchen door. I even installed a bathroom sink in the garage with heat tape on the water pipes so they wouldn't freeze during the winter. Our little farm was beginning to come together, and life was looking very good. Then one day I discovered that one of my cows had broken a leg down near the woods. I didn't know at the time that cattle should be kept away from the edge of a creek because the ground around the tree roots can give way, causing them to sink and break a leg. As I was driving to work one day, I noticed a beautiful red barn and a very nice farmhouse. I stopped and knocked on the door. The gentleman who lived there agreed to help me with the injured cow. Together we dressed the beef, hung it for 8 days, and then had it professionally processed. While we were working together, he invited me to attend his Assembly of God church in Kinsman, Ohio. Looking back now, I can clearly see the hand of God directing my steps. He moved me from Warren, Ohio, to Johnston, Ohio, and then led me to that Assembly of God church in Kinsman because he had a purpose and a plan for my life. Picture taken many years later. I come in a little bit late in church service, and I'm sitting in the far back of the church, and I see some of the men in the back row take their shoes off. And as I remarked to myself, I thought this was quite different than what I've never seen before. The next thing I see is 2 men helping a woman of going up for prayer. And the pastor says, I know we have talked about we're not going to have prayer at the beginning of the church, and we're going to do this and do that, and then after a certain amount of time, we're going to have prayer and healing services, and he says, church is a dictatorship, and when you get to heaven it is still a dictatorship. We are going to pray for this woman now, and if you don't like that there's the door, get out, this is the house of prayer. And I'm saying to myself, I think maybe this is my church for sure, this preacher is screwing with his paycheck. Then I got to thinking, should women wear makeup, dress code, men's suits, no shorts, and it's really weighing heavy on me. And some were talking to myself, and furthermore it was right about there the Lord snatched me up, and I'm no longer in the church service, I'm going into this big tunnel somewhere up in the air. I go into this little opening, this big swirling mass, one circle is turning to my right, and one big circle thing is turning to my left. And I know I am going as fast as the speed of light. And I said to myself, this is totally impossible, and yet I'm here. Then I thought I felt a little movement, and I'm going faster than the speed of thought. And I said, I must be losing my mind, this cannot be happening, but here I am. Now this continued for some time. And it sorts of like slid to a stop. Now I'm in the room with God the Father. I am to his right, and I could not see him. I cannot look up, I cannot look down at what I can see. This room is big and empty. Note, the relationship here is like mom and dad, or your best friend is standing there, and you say, well, I'm going to go out, I'll be back later, and you just sort of ignore him while you're talking to him. I don't know where but I'm going to do the law of a maze. Put your left hand on a wall, keep going, and you will find your way out. So after some time it seems that I come back to where I started from. And I thought I'd seen a corner, so I'm going to go left until I find that corner, and when I find it, I'm staring at it. And it wiggles a little bit, and it opens. Now I can see slightly up and slightly down, and there's nothing there. I hear this voice talking to me a bit reluctantly to even say a thing to me, and he says, I'm going to have to send you back now. And I said, you lucky dog, I have decided to stay and keep you company, besides you have no sense of humor. I was thinking about the Bible says that a dog returns to a sense of vomit, not knowing what it meant. And God the Father says you're going to have to go back now. And I said, I have a 1-acre front yard, I've never walked all the way across to it. I got a brand new building to live in, 14-block high, 4 blocks out of the ground, 3-bedroom, 60-inch doors. I could set it to table, look out in the back, and see my cows grazing while having breakfast, good hunting in the creek, and I'm here to help you. I then noticed a banister across the floor, thinking, where did that come from? It was about hip high, and I marveled at it. Now for your information, telling God he had no sense of humor, I just entered into a contract with him to prove that he does. Now God put his hand under my feet and threw me, and I did like a rollover in the air as a 1.5 gainard, and when I looked down I could see the banister. As I rolled over and looked up, my hand went up, out of my fingers come sparklers like the 4th of July, and hitting some kind of a roof, and equations come out, diagrams come out, and I rolled over again, and more equations come out, more stuff come out, rolled over again the 3rd time, and more stuff come out, and then I went up like I think was a door, which I could not see. Now I expressed my opinion of God in my normal sweet way. You can't do that, and he dropped me. On the way down I had plenty of time to think, this is so simple. Why doesn't everybody do math like that? We can build churches, and we can feed the poor, we could do a lot of things, and everybody wanted to hear this. I got a glimpse of the body coming at me, they told me to go to it, and the thoughts going into me, no, I don't want to go into that. And I hit the body with a thump. I looked up and seen my old landlord, big 7 foot high, grabbed me, and I passed out. I am halfway conscious, laying on my back, and people have my arms and my legs in the air, and they're rubbing on my arteries. I hear somebody say he's ice cold, and he's not coming around. And a woman is walking over and says, I'm an RN, let me check his heart for a pulse. I heard somebody say, he moaned, he must be okay, and they set me upright. Every bone in my body was screaming in pain. At that moment, I became aware that there was one person on my left and another on my right. Each had a hand on my chest, holding me up because I felt completely paralyzed. The pastor then said, I believe that was of the Lord. Yes, I'm sure that was the Lord. Everyone is dismissed. Go home, call somebody, and come back tonight. We're going to vote on removing that elder from the church. Everyone left the sanctuary. A few of the men helped me to my feet and assisted me from the pew into the aisle. I did not want to move because I hurt all over. Slowly, they helped me outside and finally got me to my car. Since everyone else had already gone home, they simply helped me in my own car. After quite a while, all but one man left. One by one they said, "I've got to go," until only one remained. He stayed with me for a long time before finally saying, "I have to go home to my wife and my 2 daughters. You'd better not drive home. You're not going to make it. Stay here a while longer." Then he also left. After sitting there for quite some time, I finally drove home. I went straight to bed and slept the rest of the day and all through the night. The next morning, I got up and went to work, but nobody wanted to hear about what had happened to me. It was only later that I began to understand what the Lord had allowed me to experience and the things he would reveal to me about God the Father. These are some of the things I discovered from my experience of being with God the Father. I do not claim to know everything, and I realize that others may understand these things differently. This is simply what I experienced. Regarding spiritual gifts and speaking in tongues, I observed a difference. When the Holy Spirit gives the gift through Jesus, it seemed loving and flowing in its expression. In reference to God the Father, the communication seemed shorter, more direct, and more deliberate. God himself impressed me as being very gentle and passive. It reminded me of the way we often take our own breathing for granted until someone points it out. In much the same way, many people take God for granted, just as they might casually say, "Hi, Mom," or "Hi, Dad, what's for supper?" without realizing the authority, majesty, and honor that belong to him. I also learned that you do not have to use perfect spiritual words when speaking with God. If you speak sincerely from your heart, both God the Father and the Son will listen because they know your heart. At the same time, I came to understand that God does not force fellowship on anyone. He invites us into a relationship, but each person must respond. As the scriptures teach, he stands at the door and knocks, waiting for us to open the door and invite him into our lives. Finally, I learned that God desires a genuine, personal relationship with each individual. It is a one-on-one relationship built on faith, honesty, and fellowship. Even if someone were to challenge God by saying, "You have no sense of humor," I believe God is fully able to respond in a personal way that teaches, corrects, and reveals more of his character. Go to YouTube and enter Gilbert Steele 03 MP4.